Years ago, a plan began to emerge, and a coalition began to take shape that would one day bring sea-run fish back to the Penobscot River. It meant taking out 2 obsolete dams, building a fish elevator on a third, and bypassing a 4th dam with a modern fishway. Tuesday, June 14th, over 300 people gathered in Howland to open the fishway, the final major project to be completed. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine was there. We start off today's show right there in the riverbank in Howland. At one time, the Penobscot River was alive with sea-run fish that migrated upstream to spawn in Maine's lakes and streams. But dams blocked passage, and fish like salmon, shad, and river herring disappeared. With the completion of the project, some are already starting to reappear. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, and a Supercuts location near you. The Penobscot River has been a vital part of Maine's economy since Europeans first settled here. Boat building and lumber shipping from the Penobscot put the state on the map, so much so that the river needed forts to defend it. In colonial times, it was Fort Pownell in what is now Fort Point State Park in Stockton Springs. Later, a fortress, Fort Knox in Bucksport, guarded the river. But long before the Europeans arrived, the Penobscot River system sustained the local Wabanaki tribes, particularly the Penobscot Indian Nation. It provided food and transportation. It defined their culture. If anyone is celebrating today, it's the Penobscots themselves, as we listen to Chris Sokolexis open the festivities. The Penobscot Nation is certainly a key partner in this river restoration project. Other groups included the Nature Conservancy, American Rivers, Trout Unlimited, the Atlantic Salmon Federation, Maine Audubon, and the Natural Resources Council of Maine. They worked with federal and state agencies, plus local communities to get it done. They work with original owners of the dam, PPL Corporation, to buy and dismantle the obsolete dams and provide fish passage in the good dams, while modernizing generation capacity so that the river produces as much hydropower as it ever did. A lot of people made that happen. But front and center, you would always find the executive director of the Penobscot River Restoration Trust, Laura Rose Day.
I'm Laura Rose Day. I'm the executive director of the Penobscot River Restoration Trust. And I'm going to, among other things, be your MC for today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Don Hudson. Don is the president of the Penobscot River Restoration Trust Board of Directors, our fearless leader.
Thanks, Laura, and thank you, Chris. Yes, I'm Don Hudson, and I've been involved with the Trust for a number of years, and I welcome you to the completion of the Howland Bypass, which as you know, is the final major project in a remarkable habitat restoration project that aims to open 1,000 miles of breeding habitat to 11 species of diadromous or sea-run fish while maintaining power production on the Penobscot and contributing to the vitality of communities from one end to the other of the river. And the conversations which launched this project happened beginning probably 17 years ago and brought together representatives from the Penobscot Indian Nation, American Rivers, the Atlantic Salmon Federation, the Maine Audubon Society, the Natural Resources Council of Maine, the Nature Conservancy, and Trout Unlimited, along with community partners up and down the river. Conversations and negotiations began with the owner of the dams, PPL, and with important state and federal agencies to really launch this idea. Now, I don't know about you, but I can hardly remember what I was doing 17 years ago. there is one person here who can clearly remember what was going on 17 years ago and every day since, and that's Laura Rose Day. Laura will have a chance to speak with you in more detail momentarily. We know her and love her, and I think a lot of people in Maine, particularly in the Penobscot watershed who've gotten to know her, appreciate her hard work and her creativity and her stick-to-itiveness. And I want to share with you the fact that other people in the region also know that. At a meeting just a week ago in Fredericton, the Gulf of Maine Council on the Marine Environment named Laura Rose Day a 2016 visionary and gave her the Visionary Award.
Well, as most of you know, it takes a lot to make me speechless, and that's how I feel right now. So thank you very much. I feel very honored to receive this award, but also to be in the company of all of you at a place that where really the Penobscot Project, I think we could say, started. Howland and the Howland Dam, this was the first place where there was discussion about the next round of relicensing a lot of hydro dams on the Penobscot River. And people were really questioning how that ought to go. In the 1980s, there was a new proposal to build a new dam on the Penobscot River. It was called the Basin Mills Dam. It would have been it would have doubled the size of the next biggest dam on the lower river, and it was largely viewed as a project that would have told the end of the possibility of bringing wild Atlantic salmon and all of the other species back to the Penobscot River. And at that time, the river was going through a lot of change, a lot of questions. And everyone was thinking, how might we do things better in the future? And so the vision that we see coming to fruition today with a free-flowing lower river, a new fish elevator at the Milford Dam, which you'll hear more about what's happening there, but suffice it to say that this year is a very exciting year for fish coming up the river. And we're in excess of about 1.7 million river herring on the lower river, which is just absolutely remarkable. And a testament to the work that so many of you here have done.
And right about now, there are a lot of people to thank individually, which is exciting in person, but not so much in a radio broadcast. So we'll take a break, and when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns, Marine Resources Commissioner Pat Kelleher takes the stage, and we'll take a closer look at what is actually happening with all of this and why it is so important. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're in Howland at the official dedication of a massive new fish passage, the final piece of the puzzle that opens up 1,000 miles of fish-spawning habitat in the Penobscot River watershed. This is a watershed moment. Howland always was the trickiest part of the puzzle because the dam provided more than just power. The impoundment supported property values along the river and a terrific bass fishery upstream. Still, if the restoration project were to be successful, the ocean fish had to get up there with the river fish, and a modern fishway had to be installed to make that happen. To give you an idea of what's anticipated, just look at what happened with the Milford fish lift that was completed a couple of years ago. There are a bunch of sea-run fish that all swim together: Atlantic salmon, American shad, blueback herring, alewife, and sea lamprey. While salmon, shad, and blueback herring spawn in the fast water, alewives spawn in lakes and ponds. To get those to come back, the Department of Marine Resources began stocking alewives in 2010. It would take a few years for them to mature and return. This year, the fish are coming back beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Somewhere between 1 million and 2 million fish have been coming back. Even where I live, on Pushaw Lake. A fish passage was built on Pushaw Stream at the outlet of the lake, and an amazing number of fish have been returning this spring right behind my house. Now, I know there's some people worried about alewives hurting the bass fishery, but personally I have my doubts. There are 2 largemouth bass hanging around the passage. They've been gobbling down alewives like popcorn. Before we can ever get salmon to return in historic numbers, we need alewives, shad, and herring. When salmon smolts swim among these fish, they get covered. Predators go after the other ones, and most baby salmon survive. All of this is making a difference fast. For instance, in 2014, the American shad count in Milford was 800. Now, during the 35 years the VZ trap was operating, only 16 shad were actually caught in the trap. Adult sea lamprey only swim upstream to spawn too, and they're not feeding on anything during this time. They're just going up there to fornicate. They are important to salmon restoration because they use the same spawning habitat and actually help prepare the river bottom for spawning salmon by moving large rocks around to make their own nests. After spawning, the lampreys die, and their decomposing bodies provide a nutrient-rich environment for emerging salmon fry to grow. Marine Resources Commissioner Pat Kelleher.
Good morning, everybody. As they say in Maine, I'm just wicked glad to be here. On behalf of Governor LePage and all of the people of the state of Maine, I'm pleased to join you here in celebrating this project, which represents a tremendous accomplishment. I remember Andy Good calling me very early in this project, years and more than a decade ago, going, "Hey, we want to take 2 dams out on the Penobscot and build this big river around another dam. What do you think?" And I said a few words that I don't think I can repeat here today. But I said, "Hey, you know what? You know, maybe that'll work." And at the time, I was managing Atlantic salmon only as the director of the Salmon Commission. So you have to be very optimistic. Have to be an optimist when you're managing salmon. So you know you can only say yes in that capacity. So this project in particular has been a tremendous balancing act. On working on many different river restorations, and still in my capacity as commissioner, focusing on the St. Croix and on the Penobscot in southern Maine, the direction from my boss, the governor, has always been find that balance, find that way to create that balance for the people and the environment. And this project in particular certainly has accomplished that. The Howland Bypass and the balance with the community in particular has been fantastic. It is one of the crowning achievements that I think of this project. I've been involved with sea-run fisheries for way too long now, 25 years, I guess. At the Atlantic State Marine Fisheries Commission and working for nonprofits and now the state. And this certainly is a tremendous goal that has been achieved here today. More than 12 years. How many years, Laura, total? 16, going on 16 plus years this project has been going on with all of the stakeholders, and it really was a team effort. I was very pleased to see Lynn Scarlett here today, who was an undersecretary at Interior and became acting secretary, and was very instrumental and really a pivotal point in some of the early funding for this project. So, Lynn, I'm very happy to see you here today. On a side note, we took her to breakfast and we said there's tremendous community support here for this project. And the first thing that happened was a woman who was waiting on us walked over and said, "I can't believe you're taking the dams out." And Laura almost fainted. So, you know, if you look at what's happened, here, look at what's happened on the Kennebec with the removal of the Edwards Dam and the Kennebec hydropower agreement, where we're pushing 5 million fish past there this year. Shad have been a tremendous comeback, where we're passing shad in record numbers at the Brunswick Dam for the first time in the history of that fishway because of many problems. And we're always trying to create safe, timely, and effective passage, and this project has certainly done that. We're going to move on to the St. Croix to see the same type of benefits that we're going to now see here within this project. This is a historic effort to restore this river, with millions, pushing now going on 2 million fish already coming back to the Penobscot River, a number that I just can't get over. We're at that level already. We never would have expected that we would have achieved that number at this early state. Just good stuff. Just good stuff. I don't know how else to say it. Kate's looking at me saying, don't say anything inappropriate. So I'm not going to say anything inappropriate. So that's all I'm going to say. But congratulations to Laura, to Kate, and to Andy, the three who really, we spent a tremendous amount of time in Washington, D.C., and Andy's boss was glad because his wine bill went down when I stopped going down there with him, probably. But it was all of that time that has led up to this today, and then beyond with all of the effort for all of you here today. So congratulations to everyone. So. And with that, I would like to introduce Sherry White, who is the Assistant Regional Director for Fish and Aquatic Conservation for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Sherry's been in Maine, in Hadley, but working with us in Maine for 3 or 4 years now. Has been a tremendous partner on fisheries management along the coast and here in the state. So, Sherry.
Thank you, Pat. So taking a look at everybody in the room, I was caught up in the excitement before we even got up here to speak, because I could just feel the energy and everybody congratulating each other on such an important endeavor and the success that's become of this. I'm honored to be here with you this morning to mark the completion of the Howland Nature Lake bypass, and I think this this partnership demonstrates the monumental construction project that it took to reconnect the Penobscot River to the sea, and it was done while still maintaining energy generation. And now we have all of these species that are coming back to the river. You've heard from everybody the record numbers of fish that are passing and the immediate success that has been demonstrated from this project. So this is the last major milestone in the Penobscot River Restoration Project. And this alternative to dam removal puts our latest technology to work. And it's the largest nature lake bypass in the country. Unlike traditional fishways, this bypass connects the aquatic community upstream and downstream of the river. And the bypass functions as a river, and it can support all kinds of wildlife, from American eel to freshwater mussels and insects. And we think of this bypass as being similar to a highway bypass, allowing aquatic organisms free movement up and down the stream. Appealing to get all the critters moving through that was really challenging for our agency and for our partners and for the engineers who designed this fishway. Imagine fish just coming upriver, and they need signals to enter the fishway, and then once they're in there, they need conditions in that stream that match their strength for swimming through the fishway. And then getting up to this elevation isn't easy, so they need a lot of pockets, just the right places to rest. That sounds a lot like my trip up here from Massachusetts yesterday on the interstate. So this is kind of like an aquatic easy pass.
Once again, that's Sherry White, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we're in Howland at the official opening ceremony of the Howland Dam Fish Passage, the last major piece of the Penobscot River Restoration Project, a project so advanced that it is serving as a model for other parts of the country and the world who are faced with obsolete dams blocking significant natural resources. And this fish passage is about as modern as it gets. Up next, we'll hear from the Chief Kirk Francis of the Penobscot Nation. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. We're coming to you today from Howland, where a celebration is taking place over the completion of the Howland Bypass, a passage for fish around the dam. For a lot of years, the Penobscot River has had a job to do, making power, especially for paper making. But it has had many jobs to do since the last ice age. It's been a river highway for Maine's pride. It's been a spawning ground for Maine's fisheries. There are a lot of reasons Maine's ground fisheries have disappeared, such as overfishing and warming waters, but one of the contributing factors has been the disappearance of food fish that spawned in Maine's rivers. Alewives in particular have been very important to our fisheries. They've been a source of food for us, and they've been a source of bait for lobstermen. So far, restoration efforts have shown huge results for this fish, and the shad are coming back too, and even striped bass are starting to move upriver. That's good news for everyone, and great news for the Penobscot tribe.
It's good to see everyone, and as mentioned, my name is Kirk Francis. I'm the proud chief at Penobscot Indian Nation from this place. Not exactly this place, Chairman, so don't get excited. We're not But it's truly a historic day, and obviously an honor to be here. And we always have to acknowledge our tribal members and the work they do around environmental stewardship. And of course, it's too bad that Butch can't be with us today. But Butch Phillips is not only a staunch advocate of this project, but a spiritual leader in our community, someone I look up to very much. I know Scott's here as well and doing great things on the river. So we miss Butch today. And also, and I've said this a lot lately at different events, but we've had the pleasure of having the same natural resource director at Penobscot Nation for close to 40 years, and he's got gray hair, so I can say how old he's been there. But I think, again, anybody who has survived tribal politics at the director level for 40 years is truly mastered the art of survival. So we're very, very pleased to have John Banks. I'm glad these guys all can't vote. But also, I think it's important for everyone to know, I had recently had the privilege of talking about the project at Fish Migration Day in Washington, D.C., and with the international community as well as high-ranking officials in Washington, D.C., and it's amazing the model it's become everywhere for habitat and river restoration, and also just how inspiring it is to multiple countries that are trying to accomplish the same thing in many areas. So this project truly is going to reap the benefits of the work long after we close up here today, and there'll be a lot of people that will benefit from the work they're doing by the example set here. Secretary of State himself in his statements talked about the project at length, and so I think that's a credit to everyone that not only were we able to accomplish this kind of local project here in Maine, which is very huge, obviously, but also set an example around the world for what can be accomplished. So great job by everyone. So it truly is an honor to be here representing the Penobscot Nation to talk about this great river and a project we are very proud of. First of all, it's important that everyone knows that not just myself and everybody that participates, but what a uplifting experience it has been for the tribe to be part of a project where we were given a lot of deference. Our opinions were valued. The cultural aspect of the Penobscot River was really taken into account. And, we just really can't put into words what it has meant to the tribe to see the river, its health and vitality coming back after the efforts of so many. And, of course, culminating today in this great town of Howland and all the work that, Laura told me that nobody ever disagreed throughout this project. And so I believe her. Yeah. Chairman doesn't. But obviously the complexities of projects like this take a great deal of stick-to-itiveness, rolling up of the sleeves, finding common ground, and this is a prime example of being able to do that. So we're really proud of the project, but we're proud of it in so many ways. We've said over and over, this project to the tribe is about so much more than simply fish or fishways and removal of dams, energy, economics. It's really about a people who have survived and lived on this river for over thousands of years, 10,000 years, they tell us through archaeology, where it served not only as our life source and highway, but is a very central part of our cultural existence. So the project has allowed us to participate and helps fulfill our responsibility to our mandate for stewardship of the river, but environmentally in general. So again, these partnerships have been critical. And standing here, it really shows what can be accomplished when dedicated people respect each other's views, work in the spirit of finding common ground. It was a privilege to work with the good people of Howland and reach a compromise that allowed the dam to remain in place and also accomplish the goal of access for fish to their natural habitat through this great fishway. And all those compromises took place all throughout this project, whether it was figuring out how to keep energy capacity, a whole host of things. So again, a great example of good partnership. So to me, the real value, as I've said 100 times already, of the project is that a diversity of interests could really overcome their personal interests and meet the overall goals of the project. But the partnerships are more than just meeting the goal of the project. It's the friendships we've created through this, the ability of the tribe to be able to talk about itself, something we love to do, by the way, and really educate people about why philosophically we come at things from a certain way, and hopefully those friendships were valued both ways, and we're really appreciative of them. So again, I want to thank you all very much, not only for allowing the Penobscot Nation to be part of this project, but for really setting an example of what can happen when multiple interests come together, and many times in an adversarial way, but in the end, find common ground. So thank you all very much.
Today's episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine has been coming to you from Howland as we join with Chief Kirk Francis of the Penobscot Tribe in celebration of a new fish passage around the old dam. This is something you're going to want to see for yourself. At one time, there was a lot of controversy among local folks who didn't want the impoundment compromise. But once you see it, it's pretty amazing. The channel looks like a natural whitewater river flowing around the dam, filled with rocks and pools. In order to work, it has to lure fish into the turbulence, let them work their way upstream, pausing in the eddies to rest, and eventually reaching the top to continue to their spawning grounds. The passage had to have just the right gradient, because some fish are better than others at getting upstream. The water starts at the top of the impoundment, releasing only the amount of water necessary to provide the passage for the fish. The rest goes through the dam or stays behind the impoundment. The new waterway replaces a dilapidated old tanning mill that used to be at the site. The grounds have been replanted with trees and lawns, and it is set to be the jewel in Howland's rejuvenation. Future generations may now get to watch what previous generations saw. Millions of fish passing in plain view, and all without any loss of electrical generation in the river. Where once we were asking the river to make power and carry away sewage, and that was about it, we are now finding new ways to put the river to work. And, by the way, that's next. The Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta returns next week, so we'll get ready. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. The Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta is coming up again July 6 through 10 on the Penobscot River between Old Town and Eddington. The Penobscot Nation is hosting the event again. This is the 9.5-mile section of river between the Milford Dam and Eddington Bend. It's the area where 2 dams came out as part of the river restoration project. The Great Works Dam, which was next to the Old Town paper mill, and the Vesey Dam, which was just downstream, just before Eddington Bend. Along the way, there are 3 Class 2 to 3 rapids and a lot of rips and fast water. Last year's race was late in July. It's been moved up to the beginning of the month to make sure we have more water this year. Now, I attended last year for 2 reasons. I wanted to see what the race was all about, and I wanted to tell you how to best view the races this year. So let's talk about the race viewing strategy. There are basically 3 parts of the riverbank you're going to want to know. Much of the activity starts in downtown Old Town, right from the park where the headquarters tent is set up. All of the longer races start from there. The next spot is the most important. A big set of rapids now challenges racers right where the old Great Works Dam used to be, right next to the paper mill. You get to it from the Bradley side, where there was an old baseball field. The small side roads should be well marked, but the 2 streets are Brown Street and Broad Street. There's lots and lots of parking and some portable toilets in there. From the parking lot, you clamber down to the riverbank, where the whole shoreline is filled with good places to sit and watch from the rocks. You might like to bring a lawn chair, even a cooler. Much of the best racing is going to take place along this 1-mile stretch, including all of the sprint races. Now, I'll tell you about the 3rd spot in a moment, but here's some of what I witnessed last year along the Great Works Rapids. I moved downriver to the best vantage points. The upstream start is good to watch, and it's interesting to watch the tactics from there, but down here you get to watch how they handle the ledges, the drops, all the heavy water, and some of the piled up waves. From my vantage point right now, I am about a half a mile, make it a little more than that, let's say 3/4 of a mile downstream from the starting point. Spectators are lined up along the shoreline. If you're going to see only one race next year, I would recommend that you look at the schedule and do the sprints. You get to watch each individual canoe and how they handle the rapids, analyze the techniques, and watch the trouble they can get into. This is a sprint of a mile, maybe a little bit more than a mile, but not much. And it's all rapid from the start to the finish. I'm now most of the way downstream, not too far from the finish line. This is where the worst drops are. And over the last 2 canoes, I've watched 2 solos go through. The one came over on the left side, went down some shallower drops and got hung up on a ledge. He got stuck right there, got turned around. It's going to make terrible time. A 1-man Kevlar canoe, a really fast boat, went through the heavy drop on the right side next to the mill and went right over as he went over the drop. Now a 2-man canoe is trying to do the same thing, but they're hugging the riverbank. They picked the right line so far because they made it through that drop just fine. But now they're hung up on a ledge over there. Picking the right drop coming through here is probably the test. There's 2 tests. One is getting around the upper buoy. The other is coming down and picking the right line through this river. The problem is there is a lot of choices. You can come over really shallow on the river sides, or you can take the heavy water in the middle. You can go left or right. You can split the 2, and no right line is necessarily going to be right depending on the changing conditions. Recreational canoe at Penobscot is coming through. They're taking the far side, on the right side next to the mill, paddling hard, and they're going right for the heavy drop. If they make this, they're in good shape. If they don't, they went through like a knife through butter. I don't think they even took on a whole lot of water. That was a good run through there. Solo kayak is coming through. He's going to take the heavy water right through the middle. That gives the kayak an advantage because he's not going to swamp. He's not going to take on water. He didn't even slow down as he bounced through those waves and went through. So he just kept up a steady paddle the whole way. Kayaks had the advantage in picking the line. He is just taking the heavy water everywhere he can find it and motoring through fast. Not many kayaks. These are national canoe champions for the most part, with some kayak divisions and with even a paddleboard, although I think I've only seen one. It's mostly canoes, and it's mostly recreational Royalex type canoes. There are some Kevlars. Lots of people are expert here, but a lot of recreational canoes are probably forming the bulk of what we're seeing here. Well, we have a boat in trouble. That solo red Penobscot got to the big ledge drop, actually went to the right of it. Didn't even catch the worst of the water, but managed to swamp. He's now stuck there trying to get the boat off. He's not moving, the boat's not moving. Now he's got it turned up right. The advantage of flotation. In the meantime, another Penobscot is passing him with a two-man crew. They sluice by right to the left of him. They have no trouble getting through. But that other boat is going to have to go to the sideline, empty out, and that's the way it goes. The third spot is at the finish line for the long races, which is down to Eddington Bend. But really the better viewing is above that. I tried it from the Eddington side last year, but I think the VZ side may have been a better vantage point. It overlooks the VZ Rapids with a clear view over the last mile downstream. Here's what you do for the long races. You can watch the start at Old Town, hustle down to Great Works on the Bradley side, and then you have quite a bit of time to drive back up through Old Town, drive down through Orono, get to VZ. The viewing area is at the end of VZ Street. Coming up, the best interview of any show all last year. This is how the races really work. It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We started the show by attending the opening of the Howland Fishway on the Penobscot River, the final part of the Penobscot Restoration Project. We're now getting ready for the result of all this effort, a free-flowing river worthy of holding a national canoe race, the Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta. It starts July 6th. Watching the race is fun, but here's what's really happening on the inside. Lanny Love Cochran and Shelley Koenig nearly won the long race last year.
This river is really technical. You know, you approach the rapids, and if you don't have your line and you know what you're going to do, it's hard to just run it blind. And we were lucky. They made a couple mistakes, but then we made a couple mistakes. And overall, I'd rather go into a competition battling and both have good runs than see someone, dump and then not have a good run. But they kept us honest, and I know that they're going to say we kept them pretty honest, too.
Well, when you say you made a mistake, those of us watching from the riverbank would never know what mistake you were making unless we knew what line you should have taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would not. We didn't know we made that mistake until we made it.
Yeah.
But no, I think if you were in the boat and you had a tape recorder, you might hear a few words that you wouldn't want to repeat. But, it's awesome to be on a river that is running for the first time in many years. And it's got not only natural obstacles and pour-overs and wave trains, but it's got some crib works and some industrial obstacles, too. So, and then, throw in a couple, more than a couple dozen boats that you have to pass. So there's some more obstacles. But, you live in Maine, you get out here, that's what you do. It's super fun. We had a really great day.
You just used a whole bunch of terms that nobody in this listening audience, except for a handful of people, are going to know.
Oh.
A pour-over.
Oh, well, a pour-over is what you want to avoid, except when your bow girl goes, "We're going through the pour-over." You're like, all right.
In which case, you bury the front of the boat and pick up water.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about your bow girl. If she's, she stays in your boat, so you gotta work together. Canoeing is awesome because you communicate, you work together, but yet at the same time, you have a little bit of being individual because you gotta, someone's gotta pick the route and then you gotta agree on it. But a pour-over is an obstacle in which you typically don't want to go over in a canoe. Shelley, why don't you explain?
Yeah, tell me all about it, Shelley.
Since you led us through it.
Since I know so much about canoeing. A pour-over is just basically usually by a rock hazard. And so when you go over it, there's what's called an eddy behind it.
Yeah.
And so the water's flowing upstream, and that can create some pretty good white water, but it's moving in the opposite direction. So first of all, it stops you, and secondly, it likes to flip you. So.
Did it come close to flipping you yesterday?
Not at all,
No.
actually.
No.
Funny thing was we had, for this particular rapid she's talking about, we'd picked a line going around the pour-over, and there's some pretty large diagonal waves right beside it that you have to skirt as well. So you have to kind of thread the needle between them. And we watched the boat in front of us go right over the pour over and come out dry. So I was like, changing plans, Lanny, we're going straight over it. And we did, and actually we didn't take on an ounce of water there.
Really?
No, you just lean back and paddle like crazy. And like I said, we watched someone else go over first. So it wasn't like this was all my idea. But
Now,
it was a faster line.
The person in front has to do the bailing. Did you have to bail much?
You know what? We only had to bail here at this rapid. So no, yesterday we actually stayed pretty dry. And interestingly, it unfortunately kind of worked out that most of the water went to the back of the boat. So Lanny had to bail most of the water out while trying to steer the boat. And that was one of our mistakes, was that once there's water in, she can't steer the boat. So we're kind of veering all over the river trying to get the water out.
Did you have a chance to practice this river at all ahead of time?
Yeah, we actually came down 3 times
Yeah.
and practiced. And the thing about this river is at different water levels, it's a totally different river.
Right.
So when we first ran it, it was really high and it was pretty intimidating. The second time it was low, so it was very forgiving. The third time we ran it, we were like, wow, we're owning it now. And then the race day, we're like, wait, weren't we supposed to be like out here owning this river? But, and the thing about a race line is different than a recreation line. When you're out there to have fun, you want to hit the big stuff and you're like, wee, this is fun. A race line is, you want to go in the fast water.
Yeah.
So you have these different perspectives, like where's the fast water, where are the holes, where's my competitors, who's behind me, who's ahead of me,
I couldn't disagree more. When I do it recreationally, I look for the cleanest, driest line I can find, even if it means zigzagging all over the river, just to there's a nice little sweet slot through there.
Oh, it's true. I don't want to spill my beer.
And right, exactly. And when you're competing, like all of that, which is the fastest way down, the straightest way down, and sometimes, we went through things that I would never otherwise guide us through.
That's why we're good partners, because I look for the big wild ride and Shelley looks for the clean ride, and we're like, okay, let's compromise.
Well, partnership matters, because I have a big gash in my canoe because my wife and I can never agree in the right line. Is it possible to canoe with your spouse in any competitive way?
You do?
I've done a lot of big races with my spouse, and I probably would have done it with him if I didn't have Shelley.
You know what it is that at least with Lanny and I think we have an agreement that I pick the line and I tell us where we're going to go. And Lanny will follow that unless she can't do it, in which case she just tells me what to do. And if she tells me what to do, it doesn't matter where I thought we were going, I do what she said. So even if I think we're going to go river right, if she doesn't think we're going to make it there and she tells me draw left, then I do.
Yeah, there were a few times yesterday she goes, go right of the rock. No, we're going left. Okay. But there are times when we first started paddling, we had a little miscommunication. I would say, are we going to go left of the rock? And she'd go, no, we're going to go right of the rock. Okay, you mean left of that rock or right of the rock? I don't understand.
The rock on the right or right of the rock?
I've lived this before.
Yes, so it does. You have to work on the communication part just as much as any kind of paddling
most important,
part.
once you're out there, you can't argue.
No. Otherwise, I want to go right. She wants to go left. You're going to go over it.
Yeah.
That's not where you want to go.
But I do have to say, yesterday, the group of women that were, all of the women in the category that we were in, the 9 or 10 boats, they were fierce competitors, and that's pretty special.
The field from the start to the finish, I think, was all within like 8 minutes.
Well, these are the nationals.
That's right. That's right.
And that's something I'm not used to. Like, for me, I expect there to be, a good 40-minute window of people finishing.
Yeah.
Right,
and you could see every boat in front and behind. We were all just in a line.
You can hear them.
Yeah.
And when you hear them that close, that must urge you on to a better performance.
Well, it does for me. If you're not a competitor by heart, you wouldn't be out here. You're a competitor. For example, on the river, we had a little with tit with a tit for tat with another boat.
A 300-yard wide river, and we were bumping gunnels with another boat for like a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does that happen normally?
Well, it happened with us.
There was one line. We all wanted it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, they knew the line, we knew the line, so we both wanted to stay in it. And we had a couple words. And then at the end of the race, we're like, hey, we're all back to being friends again. But when you're out there, you put your game face shows
Swapping
up and you
paint.
Do it.
I didn't know you would do that outside of NASCAR.
Oh, hey.
Well, and you certainly wouldn't think so on such a wide river.
I know. Yeah. But it's awesome. It was an absolutely great race yesterday.
It really was. Yeah.
I haven't seen some of the other races they do nationally, obviously. I only know this one. But when I look at this river, I say, this is probably a pretty good river for a nationals race, isn't it?
I think
great.
it's, yeah. The last time it was in Maine, it was on the Dead, which
Right,
is also
yeah.
a pretty amazing river. I mean, the thing that really attracted us to the race is because it's the Nationals, but also because they tied in the Penobscot Indians,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's on a river that's running for the first time. You know, those things all combine together, and it's in Maine. You know, your backyard. It makes you feel like you're proud of where Maine is and what this river is doing.
Yeah. As I've watched this for the last couple of days, I'm thinking this has a lot of potential to be a big race. I mean, really
Oh, for
attract
sure.
the
I mean,
nation.
I think it's quite a bit bigger now than it has been before. Even they said they're.
It's the largest turnout that they've had for a Maine Nationals, and maybe even Nationals that are outside of
Yeah.
Maine, but this has been one of the largest turnouts they've ever had.
That doesn't surprise me because the Dead River will kill you.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's it from the banks of the Penobscot. The last voices you heard were Lanny Love Cochran and Shelley Koenig, competitors in last year's Penobscot River Whitewater Nationals Regatta, which repeats starting July 6th this year. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine airs every Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. This show and all previous shows are archived online at 929theticket.com. Brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and a Supercuts location near you. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.